I'll watch you do it. Make sure.
So we're recording now. We're
Okay.
we're close.
Been a special kind of day.
I might
Starting out of the gates. The gates never closed.
There you go. Respect.
That's a firm out of
Oh.
right now.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. What's Jake doing? Right.
So he's also, I'm just, yeah, like, it's full of colors. Small, big, busy.
We'll do this, maybe we can visit.
Sure, yeah.
My pen is in my left hand. It looks like I'm writing.
You good?
Check my.
Yeah, we're ready to roll whenever you are.
Well, we're early.
Let's give them 2 minutes. We don't have a lot of attendance online. We usually have quite a few on there.
Usually we're. No, and now that he says that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that Monday after Spokane.
John can't make it and. Then.
Leah, I waited for us. 30 minutes extra. And on, I just.
You have to hire out.
Oh, Michelle's here.
But they're still doing mop-up operations, so. They might be now, but you're right, I don't think it's.
Yeah, I heard him. It sounded like they were just about done. It's gonna take some up time now.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a while.
They don't need a much of this,
Right.
making it enough.
Big
Right. Battles with trains. Was that a passerby or was that a resident down there?
Well, I think we have to do the core right now. On fire while driving.
We do.
One of our residents changing location.
County.
or-
No,
We have UI.
Yep.
We have the city of Pullman. Yeah, we do have a quorum.
Awesome.
So just for everybody to know, Tyler had a family emergency. You know, JB, I know you just talked to or emailed with him this morning. Something came up and he can't make it.
Sure.
Jeff Flanagan is, pretty sure he's on vacation. And then, Paul is unavailable. So Lee is the other subcommittee chair and he graciously decided to show some leadership and
Happy to do it.
chair the meeting today.
Get ready for a wild ride. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
We'll do adjourn.
Yeah.
I gotta get.
Hey, I try to help you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, I think before we get started with the approval of minutes, let's go around the room and do a round of quick introductions. And then we have some guests here. Mike, do you want to kick us off?
So I'm Mike Falpel. I'm the executive director of Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm our water conservation project coordinator, so I do a lot of education outreach stuff.
Howdy, I'm Mark Story with Whitman County Public Works.
Jamie Short, I'm with Department of Ecology's Water Resources Program, and I'll probably swing here so I don't make y'all look off this side.
Well, Chad Wetzel, Whitman County Commissioner.
Bryce Blankenship, Moscow City Council.
Lee SB, AVP of Operations at University of Idaho. We'll start back there with you all.
I'm Megan Cole. I work with our director out of our Coeur d'Alene office. Usually participate in Zoom, and today we're present to be in person.
Welcome.
Robin Nimmer, senior hydrogeologist at WSB. Mika Holden Waters, hydrogeologist, also at WSB.
Isaac Hall, grad student, University of Idaho.
All right, we'll go to those folks online. Kara, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'm Kara Haley, city engineer for the city of Pullman and one of the PBAC reps.
Excellent. And last name Richmond, I'm not sure first name.
It's Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle Richmond, Idaho Department of Water Resources in Coeur d'Alene.
Okay. Jeff.
Jeff Hansen with HDR Engineering, consultant project manager on the Clearwater Study.
And Chris.
Chris Beard, hydrogeologist, Washington State Department of Ecology Water Resources Program.
John.
John Slagboom, WSU.
And other John. John Coonan. All right, we'll move on to Nathan.
Nathan Weller, Pullman City Council.
And Lana?
Water Resources Scientist UI.
Steve.
Steve Robichon, PBAC Technical Advisor.
Thanks, Steve. Holden?
Yeah, hi, Holten White with HDR Pump Station Pipeline Engineer.
And we'll go with Ken and Patrick. I think that's everybody.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon. Ken Clark, Nez Perce Drive, Water Resources Division.
And Patrick Cabbage with the Washington State Department of Ecology's Water Resources Program.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here. So let's get a head start on the agenda. So approval of minutes. Any comments on the minutes, or do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Minutes are approved as written. And we'll move on to announcements. Are there any announcements for the group? Hearing none. I think we've captured everything in the agenda, other agenda items. We'll move on to public comment on items not on the agenda. All right. Moving right along. So we don't have any unfinished business. Is there any new business? Okay. This is going well. And all right, let's get into the presentations. So we have Jamie Short here with us to talk a little bit about the state of Washington's regulatory environment.
And I do have a short presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Short presentation.
Oh, now you're gonna challenges. Oh,
It's just a regular flash drive.
okay.
Do you have a
Sarah?
Maybe I went too far down the list.
Sarah,
Is there a port somewhere we can?
there is, it may be easier to log into the Zoom from another computer and then share your screen.
Sarah, what?
Oh, you want me to?
Put you on the, she's the new one.
Sure.
Great. If not,
You
I
want me to
can
log
try.
in and we can plug it into mine? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I didn't bring my laptop up here.
That's okay.
I might need to plug.
I have a cable if you need it.
We've got some power outlets right there.
It's better with rocks and hammers.
Who's in that category? Don't mind me.
Thank you.
If she'll log on, I'll make her the presenter.
Okay.
Then we can do that.
Okay, you want to move on to HDR's presentation? And
Yeah,
intro?
let's do HDR while we're working on that.
Okay.
Are you good with that, Jim?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So I'll speak briefly and then Holton can speak to it as well. We just updated the technical subcommittee earlier today. The technical work is advancing and we don't have, I mean, Holton can share screen here in a moment if you wish. You know, if we're wanting to buy more time for Jamie, wasn't really planning on doing that, Mike, with this group today, but we certainly can. But I think first of all, the main updates are a couple fronts that we're actively doing work on is we continue refining the characterization and the depiction of available flow in the Clearwater in the vicinity of Lewiston. We have worked with Ken and others at the tribe on thinking through that. The next step is we're digging deeper in terms of the details of how and when exactly the Corps regulates releases from Dvorak Reservoir and how that needs to inform the accounting of available flow downstream at the Spalding Gauge near Lewiston. So we're continuing that work. And over the past month or two, the engineering work has progressed as well, and that includes exploring potential diversion locations. I think the main thing I would want to say on that point for this broader group is We've had some coordination with City of Lewiston with respect to their new diversion that they are currently developing. We have follow-up conversation with them tomorrow. One of the things we're exploring is potential collaboration with Lewiston, and that could look many different ways. Lewiston is moving away from a current diversion location, going upstream to a new site. We have explored the idea of using their older location, but we also know they want to hang on to that as essentially kind of a backup. And it's also not in the best location in terms of where you would want to site a diversion from a siltation, water quality perspective. That being said, all options are on the table. We're going to dig into the engineering side of that tomorrow with them to understand pros and cons of that. So I think look for more to come from that conversation that will help us hone in on the actual diversion locations of interest. And then the other piece that we've been working on is pipeline routes and pipeline design considerations. Holton, you want to give this group a high level summary of that, just like you did earlier today?
Sure. Yeah. Mike, I would need you to allow me to present like we did earlier.
Okay.
Would be controlled. It'll be that would be.
Okay, I'm making you a co-host this time, Holton, so there's hopefully no risk.
Perfect. All right. You guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yep. So as Jeff mentioned, we've been looking at kind of 3 diversion alternatives. 2 of the most promising are shown here, kind of upstream of the new City of Lewiston's diversion location, pump station location here. We've dug into this a little bit here with our subject matter experts, just as far as sedimentation, flow and everything. And so this from a feasibility conceptual design phase has kind of been given a thumbs up for this location and even further downstream here along Route 12. Overall, the alignment, we've gotten our real estate folks involved early on and have kind of determined we would prefer from a cost perspective, like to stay within the ITD right of way here along US 95 for the majority of this, and or 195 through Washington. I think it jumps the cost up per foot of pipe anywhere from like $200 to $400 per foot as we get outside of the ITD right of way. We had a meeting with ITD just this last week or week before, really positive. They didn't indicate to us that there were any fatal flaws for this proposed alignment along 95. No major utilities that are currently in the roadway. We would just have to deal with typical bridge crossings, culvert type crossings, etc.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's some echo that somebody's having in one of the microphones. I wonder if whoever that is could maybe mute their mic. Holten White, maybe, or I don't know who's behind me.
Holten's the speaker.
That's the speaker, so it must be somebody.
Is it somebody behind me?
It's some background noise there, Holton. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on, just one moment.
Mute John Conant. There you go. How's that?
Everybody.
Holton will be right back. There he comes.
Yep,
Okay.
there we go. Sorry, is that any better? I've got my noise canceling here set. So
Thanks, Holton.
Yeah, no, you're good. I think I can
great.
run.
So as I was saying, meeting with ITD went well. No fatal flaws pointed out through here. Minimal cost for easements and being in the right of way. They did mention that in the next couple of months, they're going to be releasing to the public a couple of different alternatives they're considering for rerouting 95. They didn't indicate to what scale things could be changing, but that something would be issued here in the next couple of months on that. So we're going to kind of stay tuned with that. It didn't sound like, again, that was any type of fatal flaw for these proposed alignments here. Trying to think of what else. Jeff, anything I'm missing from our previous meeting here?
I think that suffices. We don't need to get into all the weeds that we did with the technical subcommittee, but we're starting to explore hydraulics of pumping and storage options for getting water up the grade. So just work continues on that front. I think that's the main point here. And again, I just wanted to reiterate, part of this process has been a lot of collaboration. Again, tomorrow with Lewiston, and I think after that conversation, Ken will probably be coming back also for more discussions with the Nez Perce tribe. So just trying to keep everybody apprised of where we're at in this process as we go.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
You're good to go on that?
Yes.
Let me just a little bit of context, since some of the committee members are long-term, some are longer term, and some are not so much long-term. So our aquifer is a shared resource between two states, and each state has laws that govern the usage of the aquifer. Jamie is with the state of Washington. Next month, Michelle Richmond from the state of Idaho will talk about Idaho regulations, but they're not the same. And when it comes down to it, your office, your department did not issue any water rights to University of Idaho, as an example. And yet here we are. So we're cooperating. We've been doing this a long time. We're now having kind of really getting into the discussion of bringing surface water from the state of Idaho and sharing that into the state of Washington. As far as I know, when the laws were written, they didn't foresee any of this. Maybe they did. But anyway, so Jamie, we need to know about these things. We need to think about these things. So you coming here it's kind of a big deal for this group.
Oh.
And this group, well, it is. And this group represents 2 city governments, 2 county governments, and 2 land grant universities. So thank you for taking the time. And I know some of our visitors are especially interested as well. So thank you for coming. So can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Great. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. My hope is to provide just a very broad overview and then dig into questions. Because what you're discussing, what you're contemplating is unique. I know it's still kind of in the storming and norming phase and the investigation phase. So we obviously won't be able to solve every problem today, but hopefully I can give you a sense of where the state of Washington can come in, be a partner in this, help protect the investments that are being contemplated at this time. So yeah, it's pretty quick. So we'll have lots of time and hopefully you'll have some questions for me. Next slide, please. So the list of potential topics I was provided with was broad. So knowing that y'all had other things you want to do today, I'm trying to just touch at a high level on kind of ecology's role in Washington and water management, how we process applications for new rights, what our groundwater management tools are, and then project funding. And spoiler alert, ecology does not have much in the way of direct funding. So that's going to be a very short slide. Next slide, please. So in Washington state, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, I appreciate that there's differences between how Idaho manages water and how Washington manages water. And we work very closely with our partners in Oregon on water management as well. The state have differences. Sorry. But the fundamentals are the same. So water is held by the public. The way that we convey the right to use water is through a state issued water right. And that water right has information about the volume, location, purpose. Washington state is a first in time, first in right prior appropriation state. So more senior rights are designed by statute to be satisfied before juniors. And the tool that we use to accomplish that is curtailment. So we don't tend to do a lot of curtailment, especially around groundwater, just because groundwater is extraordinarily complicated in trying to determine who is affecting whom. But with surface water, we do it on the regular down, especially in the Walla Walla region. So those are kind of the bifurcation on that issue. So next slide, please. And I appreciate you driving when you had no expectation. Thank you for Diana White.
I have to stop sharing for just a second. Sometimes it freezes.
It's because I complimented you.
Okay.
Maybe this is going to be even more brief presentation than you expected.
Sometimes it's better if you're not in present mode, I've found. So maybe we could just. Sorry, folks.
Very good.
Escape presentation mode here. Right. Okay. Better.
Yay, and we're back. Okay. So just to give you a sense for those who don't work with ecology frequently, Eastern region covers the 13 easternmost counties. So we're up to Canada, Idaho, and Oregon, and bound predominantly by the Columbia River. You have Chris and Patrick at your virtual table. So I know that you probably are more familiar than you want to be with the work that we do, but that's kind of the area that our region covers. Next slide, please. And you're just gonna have to believe me because you can't read this. But when it comes to issuing new water rights, the criteria in Washington State, we have kind of a 4-part test. So we have to determine if the water is available, so physically and legally available. Is it for a beneficial use? Will it cause impairment? And is it in the public interest? Of those 4 tests, public interest is the least defined. Availability touches on both legal and physical availability. So that's where some of our rules come into play. Physical availability is kind of speaks for itself. Beneficial uses are very broad in Washington, as they are through most of the Western states. So if you can dream it, it can generally be a beneficial use. We don't allow for waste of water, but most other uses are considered beneficial. And then impairment is where a lot of new water right applications get held up and denied. Because we have in most of our basins, water use goes back, 100, 150, 200 years, and it's essentially all been spoken for. So we're unable to issue new rights without it affecting a senior water right holder. So those are kind of the considerations that we walk through when we do our evaluation. We have an application, we develop a report of examination, that's where it's either approved or denied. We have like the little pictures up there are designed to show both the public process and the appeal process. So we post all of our decisions in draft form and final form online. When someone applies for a water right and we're processing it, they have to publish it in the newspaper. So for everyone who gets a newspaper, in the legal ads, there will be information, and that's when folks have an opportunity to protest. So oftentimes if neighbors are concerned, that's where we'll get our first protest. And then we have an opportunity for comment on the draft. Our final decisions are appealable to the Pollution Control Hearings Board, which is an administrative board in Washington State. If it goes to the PCHB and is appealed, that can go through Court of Appeals. Some things are taken to Superior Court, but most issues get resolved at the PCHB level. So that's kind of just the general setting that we're working within. I wanted to focus on groundwater a little bit because it's my understanding that, at least in the past, this group has contemplated doing some injection. Now we're trying to protect the aquifers and then inject additional water into the aquifers.
That's still under consideration.
Great.
Yes.
That works well.
Yep.
Otherwise, my presentation would be weird. All right. So I'm thankful. So next slide, please. So this is just a beautiful image that Patrick, I think, generated of our groundwater monitoring network. So we talk about that physical, legal availability, impairment. this is where we get some of our information on both those topics. So we have a network of wells that we monitor or monitor with partners, and then that data is fed into the evaluation that our staff does when we're making a decision. So next slide, please. This is one you should be familiar with. This is your area, shows the wells. The fact that they are haloed just depicts the presence of a data logger. So we have a lot of good information, is how I would frame this. Most of our region, we do not have this. But because this group has been working for so long together and these issues have been so urgent over time, we've established this monitoring network and have a lot of information about groundwater levels. Next slide, please. And this, you've probably seen this, I've stolen it directly from Patrick. So thank you, Patrick, for providing it. This just showed the trend data for this basin over time. And why I think this is important is, I guess I want to make it clear, Ecology is quite aware that you've had declines in groundwater levels. That's in part why we've stopped issuing new rights in this basin decades ago. So the only real action for water rights on the Washington side of the state line in this basin is through changes in transfers. There aren't going to be new rights issued because we aren't able to meet 1 or 2 or 3 parts of that 4-part test. And if you miss the gate on one, it's a denial. So none of them are weighed more heavily than the others. Next slide, please. So one of the questions that was brought up, or I was asked to kind of touch on, is what are Ecology's tools around groundwater? So I can give you my Scout's honor that we haven't been issuing new rights. Eventually I'll retire, someone else will be in this position. So what's the certainty over time? So we have a couple different ways that we can delineate and manage groundwater areas more directly. One thing that we can do is we can establish a groundwater sub-area by quarter. We recently did this with the Pasco Basin, and that's kind of the pink salmon-y blob in the lower right-hand corner there. So this is an area that we're doing rulemaking. We're working with Bureau of Reclamation on permitting their artificially stored groundwater. And the first thing we had to do was establish the sandbox. And that's what we can do through orders. So it's a relatively easy thing for us to do. You know, we use the data that's available to say, here's where one subbasin is separated from the other. We issue the rule, we have to do public notice, and we have to provide opportunity for comment. But it's something I sign. It's a very straightforward step. So that just then segregates the groundwater inside the basin from groundwater outside. And the way that our sub areas work is you can't move water across that boundary. So we have these right now in, we have Quincy Basin, the Odessa, and now the Pasco. These are the only sub areas that we operate and kind of have that distinction, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't have more if this was an appropriate step for this basin. Do you have a question? I feel like your face is not a question.
No, just
feel free to interrupt and ask questions.
Just listening.
Okay. So in the Pasco Basin, we are following that up with a rule, which will be, go through extensive public comment and evaluation. And the rule is going to guide how we manage water within that area over time. It isn't required. We don't have to have the order and a rule, but generally that's going to be a more effective approach. The other tool that we have is an in-stream flow rule that captures management of both groundwater and surface water. And the example that I can share here is the Spokane Valley Rancho Prairie Aquifer and the Spokane River. That rule was adopted in 2015, and it has very specific language. Essentially our conclusion was that the aquifer there is fully appropriated. And so we have mitigation requirements for new exempt wells coming in, and we have in-stream flows set for the river as well. So we've only issued one water right, an interruptible right, since the rule adoption. So we haven't had to really use it as a management tool, but it is one that's available to us. So that takes me to the downer of the day, the funding opportunities. Ecology. We don't have funds generally, especially for projects of this size. That's just not, we're not set up that way. So we do have one program within the Water Resources Program, the Stream Flow Restoration Program. It's a capital grant program, about $40 million every 2 years, but it's geared towards stream flow. So that the competitive projects are projects that are purchasing, retiring a water right, retiming water for fish. I don't want to be discouraging. If there was a project that this group had that met kind of the criteria could be competitive, we would absolutely support that. But for the quantity type projects, and especially if the project is in Idaho, we don't currently have a mechanism to funds across the state line. So it's there, but it's kind of grayed out. Really, I would anticipate the most direct route towards funds would be a state appropriation or federal appropriation. And I know this group has been exploring that for quite some time. So no real news here, but just want to acknowledge that that is one area where Washington and Idaho are quite different in that we don't have that funding mechanism kind of dovetailed with our agency and our regulatory authority. So on that side note,
can I jump in on that part?
Yes.
So we have not been having overt discussions of an appropriation, but we will start that. We will start those discussions before too long. So again, for the folks who, you hear a lot of different stuff. So we are currently funded by the Idaho Water Resource Board, not the Idaho Department of Water Resources, but the constitutional state appointed board has a list of water project priorities. And the state of Washington, as far as I know, doesn't have a counterpart. But we are on the Idaho list, and the study being done by HDR right now is in large part funded by those funds from the state of Idaho. If the study is positive and it's this stage completion, we will move into the next stage of the study. And at that point, this group will need to start looking at appropriations. And you can't really do that unless you have a number and more of a project framed up. So by later this fall, it's likely that we'll start talking about that. So, and you said state and federal without being specific, and I don't even know yet, but I'm going to find out because we're going to start talking about that. So thank you for teeing that up, Jamie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I'll just share, in our conversations with Oregon, and I'm not as familiar with Idaho's regulations, but we have severely declining basalt groundwater in the Walla Walla area. They have a very fractured system, so people are pulling from a much smaller bucket, kind of competing with one another. So Oregon is very keen on figuring out how to slow and stop and reverse those trends. And they have things like critical groundwater management. They have a process by which they can actually start that curtailment on more junior users to help flatten out the curve. Washington does not have those tools. So where I see us being able to come to the table and be good partners is making sure that we're not going to make things worse. If you do obtain funding, whether it be state or federal, there's going to be an expectation from those funders that the water stays in the basin and accomplishes its goals. And so I want to make sure that we're kind of coming alongside administratively to do what we can to help make sure that's the case on the Washington side of the state line. So I don't know if that raises any other questions.
So committee folks, start thinking about this. I don't know what the questions are yet, but we're smarter together. So this is coming down the road.
Well, for things like rulemaking, that takes years. So the order that we can issue establishing that groundwater area, we could do that within a year, 6 months, a year. The rule process in the Pasco Basin, we've been working on it for 3 years or 4 years now, and we're anticipating rule adoption in 2029. It should, in part, that's because of how challenging and complicated that situation is, and with reclamation's ownership. You know, just working through that federal process, they have extra steps and it takes extra time. I imagine with a bi-state management scheme, we would want to build in some extra time. So just understand the rules process. We kind of need to get into the queue, and then it would probably take a couple of years, especially to do a good public process. So if that's something you're interested in, it needs a lead.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just gonna open it up for questions. Go for it.
Hi, Jamie. I was wondering how long it takes for, potentially your experience with state appropriation. When you start having those conversations, to maybe actually see it coming with your own.
I don't have a lot of experience directly because those types of conversations tend to happen with Office of Columbia River as opposed to the Water Resources Program. I would say years, just because, building the coalition, getting the information out there and starting to educate people, that takes time. Helping them understand why this should be a priority amongst all the other priorities is pretty challenging. So I don't know what interaction you all have with other elected officials, if they're aware of the work that's going on, or if that kind of foundational step needs to be taken still, but
that's why we need Paul.
Years. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm a good advocate. I've met him.
Yeah, Paul is, he's a little bit out of pocket right now. But we do lean on Paul Kimmel for these kinds of relationships. But we also have elected folks on the committee. There's 2 in the room, Moscow City Council and Whitman County Commissioner. We have a City of Pullman council member and a Latah County Commissioner joining us virtually. And that's elected participation. It's not in Olympia, but we do have elected participation as well.
Well, I wasn't trying to make awkward eye contact, but I mean, everyone here knows the drill on what it takes to start engaging people and getting them plugged in, and alongside your cause.
I would also add to that, because we've been at this for so many years now, there's actually a lot of recognition of our issue and our goals for the future, both in Olympia and in DC. So I've run into it a number of times now. So we don't have a request out there, so there's nothing actionable yet, but I think when we do, we're gonna get good traction. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
That's good.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
Other questions?
I have a question. This is Kara. Jamie, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on the advantages and the disadvantages to establishing a groundwater management area.
Yeah. I think the primary advantage is certainty. So I would say certainty and transparency. As I noted, when Ecology is doing that 4-part test and we're determining if water is available, we're already using the data that you've seen. So we already treat this area as somewhat separate from neighboring subbasins based on the data. We already know there's declines. It's a way of getting that out more publicly, increasing public awareness. The impact to water right holders can feel significant in that all of a sudden there's this barrier between where they would be able to transfer water for the order and where they'd be able to transfer the water after, since we have to stay within that kind of bathtub. But we have a requirement statute for same body of public groundwater where we do a change transfer. So that already applies. We're already using that information. But I think sometimes to water right holders, it feels different. It feels like a constraint that's new to them. So a lot of it is just an education campaign and helping people understand what the rules are and helping them understand it's not really a significant change. It just clarifies things relief for us when it comes to a change transfer.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I have one kind of follow-up to that, and you alluded to it with your comment about bi-state management. If like if the Palouse Basin ever looked at it, because it is cross-line, I mean, it doesn't sound like you have a situation with a sub area that is two states. Do you think that would cause some complexities, or like, have you ever had a discussion about that? I mean, does it get extra complicated with that in mind?
That's a good question. We do have experience. We've been exploring that for the Walla Walla. And what we are considering in that basin, in some ways, there's a lot of similarities because we have a lot of data. We know where those groundwater divides are. We're already implementing based on that information. So if we were to do a groundwater, create a sub-basin down there, it would be, I think, a similar arrangement where obviously the sub-basin would only apply on the Washington side. We're not going to try and dabble in our partners in Idaho's legal world, but it would mirror, hopefully, protections that are already being contemplated in Idaho. So there isn't perfect alignment. Like with our conversations with Oregon, we don't have perfect alignment. I imagine we would not have perfect alignment with Idaho, but if it's kind of just working using the tools we have to achieve similar goals. So I wouldn't say it has increased the complexity. It's just another kind of facet for us to work through and contemplate. And part of the motivation for the conversation in Oregon is something I would anticipate if you receive funding and start implementing a project. Oregon is, some of the users in Oregon are saying, wait a minute, like, what's Washington doing? We don't want to do all this investment and have it just get sucked right back up on the other side of the state line. So we're trying to be responsive partners in that situation as well.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions for Jamie or any other discussion on the topic? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much for being here and for your presentation.
Thank you. And if there's any more questions that come up, I mean, please, you have Patrick, you have Chris, but we're always happy to bring information to the table.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. We'll move on to our water conservation outreach update and introduction of our newest team member, Sarah Olson. Also our technical advisor for Mike.
Yeah, not Steve, but the
IT
advisor.
Yeah.
She didn't know that before this started.
Well, anyway, hi, I'm Sarah Olson. I'm the new Water Conservation Project Coordinator for PBAC. So I handle a lot of our education and outreach. It's a very local emphasis. So it's a lot of getting out in the community, going to events with a table and maybe an interactive activity. We do things like go to schools and give presentations, this and that. So social media, education outreach, that sort of thing. And just about me personally, I've been in the area for about 5 years. I did a bachelor's at WSU in environmental science, and now I'm studying water resources for my master's at UFI. And I'm pretty close to the end of my program. So yeah, this job is kind of getting me through the end of grad school. It's fun. I've been here about 3 weeks, so I'm starting to find my footing and get to know people. Yeah, I'm excited. And then I can talk about any projects that I've been working on if you'd like that too.
I think we're good for now, but thank you. But in a month you'll be like, and I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, because she's adding stuff to the calendar all the time. I'm already behind today on things that she needs to do that, which we'll catch up.
Yeah, no problem.
So thank you, Sarah. And Sarah's sharp. She understands that this is a people job. This is a communication job, but with her educational background and some of her prior work, she did a semester with Palouse Conservation District, for example. She has the vocabulary and she has the background that's really going to help with that.
Have you already connected, or are you looking to connect with schools as school semester starts up or school year starts up, or wait till everybody kind of finds their footing a little bit?
Oh yeah, to do presentations and
Yeah.
things. I've got something going on with the charter school, Palouse Charter School. I think I'm doing some programming at the libraries. And then we've done an adventure club, which is an after school program in the summer and during the school year.
Sweet.
And I'm sure there will be more opportunities to be
Yeah.
in schools, but people haven't responded to me.
Fair enough. Everybody's kind of getting into it. Yeah, that's
We've
great.
reached the point where this program for some of these, like the folks you just talked about, they kind of look
reach
for
out.
us.
Yeah.
And there's some others in Whitman County as well. So they're kind of looking for us and they're expecting that.
Nice.
So we're starting to mature the program a little bit.
Great.
Pretty happy about that.
Nice.
But if you have connections to people that are enthusiastic about that, I'd love to talk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll move on to our subcommittee reports. I know many of the chairs of the subcommittees aren't here. Start with communications.
I'll talk
You want to
about
take that one?
That's
Okay.
Yeah. So communications subcommittee met Tuesday. We're planning a fall stakeholder engagement group meeting, which the committee has an Outlook invitation to that event. It'll be in Pullman. The most recent time we met was last fall in Moscow, so we will be in Pullman this time. And we will focus on PBAC updates, but really mostly what they want to hear about is the latest updates to what HDR has been up to for the last year. And getting feedback on that. So what are the gaps in their work and what would next steps look like for that if we go ahead and proceed?
Okay.
A question about that. A couple of the private well owners in the network have expressed interest in learning more about HDR's project. Are they invited to the stakeholder meeting?
I don't know that yet, but if you want to share any information or things for folks for me to follow up with, I'm happy to do that. I heard that Sarah had an interesting conversation with one of the private well owners who's a long-term stakeholder and actually, I don't know if you're aware, sometimes litigant. So
Was it? It was.
well, I don't want to name anybody right now. I don't want to name anybody. But a long-term, highly interested and passionate stakeholder who had some things to say, and we talked about that, and I think she handled it really well. And I know that, but if there's anybody, and that person actually is on the list for the stakeholder engagement group. And if there's anybody else you'd like me to contact, I'm happy to. But that's not an open meeting, and we don't want to weigh the participation too much towards certain points of view, things like that. Yep.
You want to do technical as well? And if there's anything else to add?
Well, technical, so Jeff Hansen and Holten covered that portion of the meeting. Additionally, we had a good discussion about the potential for resuming the city of Moscow pumping from the upper aquifer. So the city ceased that pumping several years ago because of aquifer decline, and we understand some other issues. So there may be a potential to resume that and help out the lower aquifer. So we're having that conversation. It's not a matter of turning a valve or pumping a switch. The treatability is different. The wells are different. And so we're going to continue that discussion with the city. So that was technical.
All right, and I'll take the finance subcommittee report. So this is the time of year when dues come due from the various participants, and we have received dues from Whitman County, City of Pullman, City of Moscow, University of Idaho, WSU, and that's ongoing. Other than that, the budget and everything is kind of status quo, so we're moving along with our budget plan for the year as planned. Okay. We'll move on to other reports and announcements.
Yeah, before you and I have a list, but Isaac, I understand, has some updates on his project. So maybe you want to tell us how that's going, Isaac.
Yeah, sure. So it's been pretty good since last meeting that I've gotten up to 50 different wells sampled already. And that's sort of the minimum that we were aiming for. We're trying to get 55. So hopefully this weekend I'm gonna try to get 5. Maybe I'll only get like 3, but next 2 weeks I think I should be able to get those last 5. The only areas that sort of are lacking in coverage are around the golf course, the Ecology golf course near Moscow. But there isn't really many houses just north of that. There's one group of like businesses. There's an auto repair shop that I have already got their water, but I don't really know anything else around that area. And then there's that Darby Road area where the landowners there are all sort of not really wanting to participate. I don't know.
So your numbers are encouraging, Isaac.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that update. And folks, as a reminder, Isaac's research project, he's a PhD student at University of Idaho, and this is a PBAC-funded project, which is really cool science using a novel tracer methodology to find out the age of water in wells. I won't say more about that because I'd say it wrong and it would take a while. From a PBAC standpoint, it will potentially identify the best areas in our aquifer for passive recharge opportunities. So it serves multiple purposes. Everybody's going to win because it looks like he's going to get enough well samples.
Yeah, I'm thinking I should be able to get all the sampling done by the end of this month. Some of the labs that we're using are having like delays that they won't be able to analyze it till like September-ish, but I think it was late September. But other than that, yeah, all the sampling should be done by the end of this month.
Thank you. So we'll have a project report to PBAC midwinter, late fall, early spring.
Yeah,
something like that.
Rounds. End of the year-ish, I think, is the paper.
Right.
Would be good.
Thanks, Isaac.
Okay.
You want me to do the others or you want to do the others?
Either way. You want to start?
I'll
take
start.
turns.
The Idaho Water Legislative College, sponsored by IWUA, Idaho Water Users Association, will be here on Tuesday. I will be presenting on PBAC's behalf. I get 5 minutes. Additionally, Tyler will be presenting, assuming he's available, or somebody from the city will be presenting on the city of Moscow and University of Idaho's water reclamation, which is like a shining example as it should be. So we'll have a presence there. Sarah will be attending as well. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty well-attended event by current and candidate state legislators from Northern Idaho, as well as some agency people. So looking forward to that. What's next?
I'll let you talk about the Nez Perce visit, and I'll ask them.
So we periodically meet with the Nez Perce Tribal Executive Committee to update them on our process of investigating removing water from the Clearwater River. And that's that potential is very important to the tribe. And so we try to keep communication channels open. We committed to them that we would we would at least offer an update annually or more often, if it's warranted, if we have something major to tell them. So we have, offered in Ken Clark, who I think is on the call, handles our communication with the tribe on that. So, whenever, they'd like, we'll visit with them either early fall, if that's their pleasure, or later this fall when we have a report on the current HDR study.
In other announcements, Michelle Richmond, who's online from the Idaho Department of Water Resources, will provide a presentation on the state of Idaho's regulatory environment, kind of the other side of the fence from Jamie's presentation today during next PBAC meeting. And then last but not least, the Palouse Basin Water Summit will be held on October 29th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the SEL Event Center in Pullman. And we do have a keynote speaker now who is Dr. William Alley, and he is the Director of Science and Technology for the National Groundwater Association. Well-published and well-regarded person, and any other?
Well, as it happens, the Palouse Basin Water Summit has a new chair this year. So a lot of us are aware that Paul Kimmel has been the chair of the Water Summit for many, many years, but he has passed the torch, and we are very privileged that Robin Nimmer, the chair of the Palouse Basin Water Summit, joined us today. So is there anything you want to say about the Water Summit, Robin? It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we've got a really good lineup.
Okay. And so our next PBAC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 17th at 2 p.m. And unless there's any other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right.
Okay. All right, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh.
Sarah, we need to visit because
Sure.